doesn't say anywhere in the Quran that the woman has to be pubescent. I dare you to find one verse in the Quran where it says you're not allowed to marry someone based on harm, or you're not allowed to have sexual intercourse based on harm, or you're not allowed to marry someone based on puberty. So
I agree. There's nothing there, Muhammad HiJab. Point taken. When I ask people what objections they would have to the Quran, the one I saw most was Surah 65, verse 4. But we actually had Muhammad HiJab's thoughts on 65:4 from an older video. Let's go ahead and check that out.
If you look just at the Quran, you will get the indication that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old.
What?
The reason why it's haram to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old is not found in the Quran at all. If you just read the Quran, it is halal. It would be halal to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old.
It would be halal to have sex with a 5-year-old if you just go with the Quran. Keep in mind, guys, he's not saying, just to be fair, he's not saying that it's actually okay to have sex with a 5-year-old. He's saying that if you just go to the Quran, it would be. You have to go outside of the Quran to find out. No, you should wait a little bit longer than 5. Although, given his principles and those of Daniel Hukikachu, it could be a 5-year-old, but it's going to have to be a 5-year-old with a little meat on her bones, so you're not going to squish her.
In Surah Al-Talaq, chapter 65, verse 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who you can divorce and who you cannot divorce. And then he says, وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ.
Never have puberty.
وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. And the ones who had never been pubescent before. And by the way, this is very important, yeah? I want all Muslims to be aware of this.
These poor girls. Look at all these poor girls here.
This is so funny. This is the kind of stuff he usually says during a speech, and this is very important. I want everyone to be aware of this. But then he's speaking about this and how disgusting the Quran actually sounds if you only read the Quran. And he's like, and this is very important. I want all Muslims to be aware of how horrible the Quran sounds if you read it.
Yeah, and I've pointed out before, so what he's saying here is, if you just go with the speech of Allah, you would conclude that you could have sex with a 5-year-old. And you just heard him say halal, right? You just heard him, everyone, say halal. It would be halal according to the Quran. But in most cases, it's going to be haram because he believes it would be harmful, and he interprets the Quran as he interprets the Hadith as saying that you shouldn't harm people, and they're just going to apply that to this situation and so on. And so you normally wouldn't do it with a 5-year-old unless she's, really well developed or something like that. So you're going to wait a couple extra years so that you make sure you don't harm her by squishing her or something like that. But think about what he's actually said. He says specifically, it's according to the Quran, it would be halal. We know it's haram because of going outside the Quran to what other people, including Muhammad, have said. Why is this a problem? AP, you remember when Muhammad said that if Allah says something is halal and you let a man say it's haram and you go with what the man says, you're actually worshiping that man?
Yes.
And what's that mean? It means that Muhammad HiJab is worshiping Muhammad and the Hadith collectors, and so he's worshiping them. Not according to me. It's according to Muhammad. According to Muhammad HiJab is worshiping. He has made idols out of the people who convinced him that what Allah says in the Quran is halal is actually haram.
That's right.
Worshiping them.
The reason why we don't have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds or whatever is not because of puberty. Wait a minute, what did you say? It's not because of puberty, because that verse in the Quran actually says lam yahid. They never had puberty before. You can't go around that.
Can't go around
the Quran
that.
doesn't say anywhere in the Quran that the woman has to be pubescent. I dare you to find one verse in the Quran where it says you're not allowed to marry someone based on harm, or you're not allowed to have sexual intercourse based on harm, or you're not allowed to marry someone based on puberty. So
I agree. There's nothing there, Muhammad HiJab. Point taken.
Your Quran alone, you're allowed to have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds. Get me one verse in the Quran which says the woman has to be pubescent. One verse. I want one verse in the Quran from the beginning of the book to the end of the book which says that she has to be pubescent. So okay, so that makes it halal from your perspective.
He just said halal.
From your perspective, it's halal. You know, in the Quran it says, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ أُمَّهَاتُكُمْ. It says you're not allowed to marry your mum. It says you're not allowed to marry your sister, your auntie. Where does it say you're not allowed to marry a prepubescent? I'm looking for one verse that you can say, you pinpoint it and say, this is where it says prepubescent marriage or whatever is not allowed. So if you're Quran alone, you're steered towards pedophilia, a severe type of pedophilia, a wife abuse, a severe type of wife abuse.
Hold on.
What?
Hold on. It's kind of funny to me that he says pedophilia is severe type of pedophilia.
Severe type of pedophilia.
Because
not just regular.
Pedophilia is okay. That's normal. Like, we all believe in that. But
severe
this
type
is
of
a
pedophilia.
severe type of pedophilia. Severe type of. Keep that in mind. Not our regular pedophilia. It's a severe type of pedophilia.
Yeah, and those were just some clips. He at the end there, you may have caught it. He said you'd be steered towards a severe type of wife abuse.
Based.
And that's because if you watch a longer video, and as far as I know, it's still on his channel, you can look it up. It's called something like Muhammad HiJab responds to Quran only Muslims or something like that. There, he also says that since 434 simply says you can hit them or you can strike them, he points out if you did not have the Hadith laying some restrictions on this, guess what? It's the same word that's used as strike the necks in battle of people in battle. So he's saying you think you could behead your wives. You think you could massacre them for rebelling against you. If you didn't go to the Hadith. What's that?
If you have a wife, why shouldn't you be able to behead her? You know, it's like
Mm-hmm. And let's see, we have a question here. Which verse says that exactly? We're talking about Surah 65, verse 4 of the Quran. Surah 65, just give you a quick rundown. You had earlier commands in the Quran that had to deal with rules about divorcing and someone in a waiting period. So in order to avoid confusion, there would be a waiting period. If you divorced a woman, how long did she have to wait before she could get married to another man? Well, she couldn't get married the next day. What if she got pregnant or something like that, and you weren't sure who's the child was? So he said, women who get divorced, they have to wait 3 monthly menstrual cycles. Eventually, the question got brought up to Muhammad: what about women who are too old for a monthly menstrual cycle, or girls who are too young to have a menstrual cycle, or for pregnant women who don't have a menstrual cycle? And that's when Allah revealed Surah 65, verse 4, which set the terms for women who are too old to have a monthly menstrual cycle and girls who are too young to have a monthly menstrual cycle. It just said 3 months. So wait 3 months. Don't wait for cycles. They don't have monthly menstrual cycles. Just wait 3 months. And so the idea is, what's being stated there? You can marry, have sex with, and divorce a girl all before she's reached puberty. She has to wait 3 months before she gets married again, this prepubescent girl. And that's what HiJab was pointing out. He's pointing out, it specifically says, these are girls who have never had puberty. They haven't reached puberty. So it's as clear as day. You can go down through you can go down through all the commentators. Ibn Abbas says that's what it means. Ibn Kathir says that's what it means. The two Jalals and Tafsir Jalalain say that's what it means. Perfectly clear, perfectly gross. But it's weird, he's bringing up in that video from Towards Eternity, he's supposedly responding to the main verses that atheists bring up about the Quran. Shocker, left that one out. I wonder why. Because it hasn't gone too well for him in the past when he's brought up that issue.